Alright guys, I'm going to do another little build video here, or at least a walkthrough video. If you guys have seen my other video on my portable power box, you'll remember this is mine. I use this thing all the time. I did a full build review video of that on my channel, so if you want to know all the specifics of this one, go check that video out. Basically, I had another customer reach out that wanted, they wanted me to rebuild this, basically pretty close to exactly what I have here, minus a couple things like the Bluetooth speaker option that this has. They didn't necessarily need the lights, and then I simplified the power output options, which I'll show you. What I ran into, or what I found, was, if you'll remember, this one has the Leetime 50 amp hour battery in it, which fits perfectly with everything else in this case. It fits in there perfect, no issues. Like I said, works great, love it. What I found was, when I went out to price that battery out for the customer, an equivalent 100 amp hour battery, the new minis, was only $20 more expensive. So double the capacity for 20 bucks. So I thought, absolutely, we have to go that route. So what I was worried about was whether or not a 100 amp hour mini would fit in this case. So I ordered another one of these cases, which I have right here, and I ordered the WattCycle 100 amp hour mini battery. It will fit in this case if you take all the foam and everything out, of course. The problem is I really wanted to put that battery meter back up in the top of this like it is on my other box. I wanted that power meter to be up here because this is the way the case sits. I wanted everything to kind of be visible and usable from the top. So that battery would drop in here, and it sits just a little bit taller than this foam does, which is pretty much even with the top. And then of course you've got the terminals. So by the time I were to cut that hole and drop that battery meter in here, it wouldn't have fit. I mean, that comes down pretty close. So basically, this case wasn't going to work with that 100 amp hour mini, unless of course I tore the battery apart, peel it out of the case. Shout out Will Prowse, and go that route with it, which I didn't want to do, just to keep things simpler with the customer, in case they ever needed to service anything or do anything inside the box. They wouldn't just open it up and see a bunch of exposed cells and a BMS laying around inside. So that case was out. Basically, I knew I could run down to Harbor Freight and grab a Apache 3800, and I knew everything was going to fit in there. So that was my backup plan. I'm going to take this box and I'm going to rebuild the lid of this box. I'm going to get rid of all of these switches. I might drop one or two of these power outlets, probably lose the lights because I really don't use them that often. And I'm going to simplify everything back up that's going to match pretty closely with what I did with this box. Like I said, I was going to go grab an Apache 3800, and then I remembered I was given this. This is an old Invicta, like Invicta watches. It is a huge, I'm guessing this is roughly the same size as an Apache 3800. I was given to this by a friend of mine. It didn't have any foam in it, didn't have nothing in it. It had the top foam in it, but didn't have anything in it. Wasn't using it for anything. It was literally sitting in my room here, collecting dust. So I checked it out. It worked perfect to drop that battery in. So, with one exception, which I'll get to in a second, but I was able to work around it. So basically what I've done is I've basically mimicked this box with a few little differences, upgrades, is what I consider upgrades, and the same 500 watt pure sine wave inverter, the same battery meter, and our outputs, which I'll show you over here in just a second. Actually, we might as well just show you now. So what I did to simplify everything, I put the entire box on a battery disconnect. So everything that this box has to do with goes through this switch. So when this switch is off, the entire box is dead. There's no worry of anything, short circuiting, anything like that. If this is off, box is completely dead. We put in one 12-volt power outlet. The customer doesn't necessarily have anything 12-volt that they need right at the moment, but they wanted that just in case. The USBs, I opted to go to this newer one, which has 2 QC3s and then 2 65-watt power delivery USB-Cs. So basically on mine over here, I have 2 QC3s, and then I have this separate one, which is just 1 QC3 and 1 power delivery. So essentially I still only have 4 USB outputs. I've got the same thing in 1 connector here, so that's why we just went with 1 USB output here. This customer also doesn't have a slew of things that use USB, mainly their phones, maybe laptops, stuff like that. And then I did 2 XT60 connectors. One is for solar charging. The customer has a 100-watt foldable Renogy panel. And then I put on the opposite connector, XT60, for the wall charger. And then I put the appropriate XT60 connector on the end of their new Redodo 20 amp wall charger. I did that basically so they wouldn't ever have to worry about mixing up the cables, because I did get them the XT60 to MC4 solar connector, and I just didn't want them to plug those into the wrong thing. So they have this one, goes in there for solar, and then they have the corresponding opposite end XT60. So basically this, I kept it simple, easy, no worries about anything at all. So we'll flip this down and open her up real quick. I'll show you how I simplified things on the inside. So basically, if I can get my lights out of the way here, flip the switch on the side, everything comes on. It's the exact same battery meter that I have over there. So they get all of their readouts, and you can still turn it off when the box is powered on. But if you leave it on and you turn the box off, everything goes off. This way there's no parasitic draw. Everything is completely dead. They don't have to worry about bumping anything, whatever. The inverter does go live when you turn the switch on, but the inverter has its own power switch over here. So again, it has power to the inverter, but it doesn't turn on until you turn the switch on. So you're not really using anything on this box until you turn it on or plug something in. So crack her open here. I'll show you what I did. The one thing that this was my mistake, I put this guy right in the center of the box because symmetry. And what I didn't realize is that when this battery is laid down in here, the little ridge right here on the top of that battery bumps the bottom of that meter, and it bumps it up out of the case. So basically what I did is I measured how far it needed to be up, and then I put in some, believe it or not, it's called shoe goo. It's a black silicone type adhesive. I ran a bead of that in there, ran around it, black of course, so that it blends in. You don't really notice it unless you're looking at it. No big deal. Still works great. So then basically what I have in here is we have the wires obviously from the battery meter that go down and connect, and then I have the 2 8-gauge power wires from the inverter that pop through from the top of the case. They go down, feed out through the corner and down. Everything's zip tied so it stays tight and out of the way. And then basically here's the bread and butter of the box. We have a Renogy 10 amp solar charge controller. This does turn on when you turn the box on. So when the box is on, yes, this is on all the time, even when you're not charging with solar. But again, I wanted everything in here to be simple and as foolproof as possible. What I was worried about with the customers is if I had this thing on a separate power switch, if they were to or if they were to not turn that power switch on first and plug that solar panel in first, it's a direct connection into here, then they theoretically could run the risk of nuking the solar charge controller. So I didn't want that to be an option. Obviously, it is fused, so that's fail-safe. But again, I wanted it simple. So if it's something that they find they want done differently later, I can cut this. I left enough in here. I can put in a separate switch if they want to. This thing doesn't draw hardly anything. I mean, half a watt maybe. And again, this is just a box for when the power goes out. Gives them something to plug in their internet box, their TV, charge their phones, just little stuff like that. Take it camping. So nothing crazy. They're not trying to run their whole house or anything like that. So basically what I did is everything is on silicone coated, high temp, 8-gauge wire, as far as all of the mains, and the inverter is all 8-gauge wire, as well as the charger, the wall charger port. Everything else is 12-gauge high temp silicone wire, except for the solar charge controller is on, I believe, nope, that's 10 gauge as well. I thought maybe it was 12. It is 10 gauge. So I just tossed in a couple of bus bars. So we come off the negative, we go through the shunt into the bus bar. Over here we come off positive, go into the power switch, into the bus bar, and then everything else in this box connects into the bus bars. So super easy. Anything can be popped out and replaced really easy. The charge controller is just 3M VH bead to the top of the battery. The battery is held in place by this board here in the bottom that I mounted everything to in the bottom to keep it in place that way. And of course, when the lid is closed, that sandwiches it down in there. It's not going anywhere. So, and then I have this little case here that I just put that XT60 MC4 connector, as well as a little thing of spare fuses for the outputs, as well as spare fuse for charge controller and all of that. So, and there's also a couple of spare fuses in there in case anything were to ever happen with the inverter. So it's kind of their little spare parts bag. That drops right in the top. This thing drops in, sandwiches up, clamps down, nice and tight, super secure, and it's ready to go. It can be used laying down, or it can be used standing up. So that's the build. Thought you guys might enjoy checking that one out. At the time of this recording, this whole setup, everything came from Amazon except for the box. Obviously, you can order the Apache style. You can even order the actual Apache 3800s from Amazon. I ordered this, and like I said, I just swapped it out in the build with this, but this I think was 33, 34 bucks from Amazon. The Apache 3800s are 40 bucks at Harbor Freight. So all said and done, this box was running a little over 500 bucks. So is there better, worse? Probably. Obviously they could have gone with a bigger inverter. They still can. They obviously have 100 amp BMS on that battery. So they could go to, say, a 1,000 watt inverter if they wanted. Again, they don't need that. They don't have any need for anything that big. If they did, then obviously I would have built them a different system. This is mainly so they can plug in their little internet box, a TV, charge some phones, stuff like that. When the power's out, take it camping, have a little bit of backup power, not have to use power out of their RV. So that's basically where this is at. If you guys have any questions, if you guys want links to any of this stuff that I used, holler at me. I'll get them to you. If I think about it, I will try and get an Amazon list together, and I'll drop it in the comments down below. I've rambled on for long enough, so I'm going to get out of here and get this delivered to the customer. I appreciate you guys hanging out and watching along, and we'll see you guys on the next one.